Hey people, welcome to November 26th. It's a couple of days before Thanksgiving, and this is the first official prop build for the 2020 season. And actually we've kind of gotten started. Winter project season 2019/2020. We've gotten started. I've gotten parts bought, parts ordered. We're waiting for them to come in. We've been picking up supplies. We've gotten three supplies for 3 different projects, which should cover from now into January, February, maybe longer. One project that we will be doing, as you can see, I got more foam. I just got done getting it cut to size and width, and it's ready to go. We'll be working with that probably come January. I've got 2 other projects ahead of the foam carving. That, and I'm waiting for some new Dremel bits to come. Another one, I've got parts for in bags in the shop. I picked up 2 sheets of plywood. That one's going to be a fun one. We are revisiting a project and overhauling it. The power station that I rebuilt a couple of years back. It's been to West Coast with us a couple of times, and we went out in the hunt. It's starting to show some wear and tear. There's a couple of circuits on it no longer working, so it needs to be maintenance, and that's a wiring nightmare. Plus, I'm going to change it up. There's some features on it I'm going to take away, and some new features I'm going to add to it to better define it for the hunt. That's our second project for the season, which will be sometime in December. Our first project for this season is in the house, downstairs in my little mini workshop. But another reason why I'm out here, if you notice, other than that mess right there, which I'm getting ready to take care of, the extension cord, the shop is totally clean. I even got all my fasteners, the 2 5-gallon buckets I left you with in the last vlog, are done and put away. So the 2019 hunt is 100% done and put away. Okay, we're downstairs in the mini Dragon Layers workshop. And our first project of the season are these LEDs. These are what used to be the spotlights, the little spotlights that I use on the hunt. I actually started while the hunt was open, fiddling around with these, tearing them apart, because it was time for an upgrade on these. Originally, when I made these, I got the LED, I got the resistor, I used a way smaller wire. Assembly on them was a hell of a lot different. I basically stuck the LED into the tube like that, and then folded the wire back over the tube, added my wire connector onto it, and then used electrical tape to hold everything together. And then the tube stayed hollow, other than the wire sticking in it. And it was okay for the way it was going, but I was finding some of my leads coming out for hookup were starting to get way too short, from cutting them in and cutting them out. I made these back in 2012, so they've gone through 6 years. Plus the wire that I use for mounting them, like here, this is one of our haunted treasure lights, done a different fashion. We're starting to rust. you know, and get frayed. You know, they were starting to break. If they get bent and twisted, you bend wire enough, it will break. So they just need to be overhauled. So our haunt, which is open during the day for 4 hours, when I was sitting out there, I'd take some of these lights out and I started field stripping them. In other words, breaking them down into their bare components. And the only thing I'm saving out of it is the barrel and the LED light and the resistor. So, my project, I've got a pile of wire, I got negative and positive leads, I've got lights and stuff. My basic thing is I want to convert them over to the way I started doing the haunted treasure stuff, which was way nicer. The wire is actually connected to the barrel. I put the LED into the barrel the same way, but then I go and I backfill it with silicone caulking, which seals the tube so water doesn't get in, and it also holds the LED into place. I am noticing, and I don't know if you can tell, but on this one right in here, there's a little bit of rust. Some moisture's got in there, and a lot of the lights, even though they still work, are like that. So I'm going to need to go through them all really good when I'm taking the leads off to apply the new leads. Anything that's rusted is going to go in the trash, and I'll just do up some new lights. So it's going to be fun. So anyway, that's our next project, what I'm working on now. And I want to convert all the old lights into haunted treasures. You know, and another nice benefit too, if I lay this next to it, this is an 18 gauge speaker wire, is what I'm using for the leads on the haunted treasure stuff. This stuff is like a 22 gauge. It's way, way smaller. And then I converted it over to an 18 gauge speaker wire down the tube. You know, so basically it's a lot of disassembling and reassembly. I think what we're going to get started on are going to be the barrels and the wire connector. Now on the haunted treasure stuff, what I ended up doing is about 1/2 inch down the barrel. Oh, and what I'm using for a barrel, tomato steak. You can get this at any sort of nursery or anything. It comes in like a 6-foot length. And I simply just got quite a few of these, and I measured it out and cut it in 3-inch lengths. So that's a 3-inch piece of tomato steak. But to get the wiring on, instead of laying it next to the tube and duct taping it on, or using electrical tape to adhere it, on the haunted treasures, I went about 1 inch in from the end, drilled a hole just slightly bigger than the wire, stuck the wire in there, and then just wrapped it around the barrel. And that's how the light's being held, and it works really, really good. And then at the other end you put a little curly Q on it, and the screw goes through that, and once it's mounted you can tilt, aim, bend, you know, however you want on the light. But I think I'm going to go ahead and get these barrels done first, which means we're going to be heading back out into the shop, not just with this one, but with these. That's a whole barrel full. There's around 100 of them in there all together. And I got to set up my drill press, and we're going to start boring holes in all these so I can mount the wires, and we'll get the barrels and the wiring done so it's out of the way. But that is going to be stage 1. Well, we're back out here in the shop. I'm just getting set up to drill the holes. Now, I got my little benchtop drill press out, and I created a jig. And what this allows me to do is I can take one of the tubes, drop it in, lift up the bit, slide it all the way in, and then just drill my hole. And guaranteed with this little jig that the hole lands in the same spot on every tube. Now I've gotten one done. There's a little hole. And that allows me to put my wire bracket, stick a little bit of it in there, and then wrap it around the tube like I did here. And so right now it's just a matter of monotonous work of going through all my tubes I've got and drilling the hole. Fun, fun, fun. So, time to drill some holes. We got the housings with a hole drilled in them, and I'm in the process of attaching the wire leads to them, which will be their stand. Here's a finished one here. You can see the little hole there where the wire is sticking in, but it starts out like that, and the hole is there underneath that little bit of plastic. And then the wire, which starts out straight, I put a little kink into it, bending it over, insert it into the hole, and then to hold it into place, I use a pair of vice grips to hold the little wire tab into place. This allows me to wrap the wire around the barrel, like I've done here, and I've gone twice around the barrel. And then down at this end, I can put a little loop on there to hold the screw, which I'll use to attach this to items or walls, you know, wherever I need one. But it's just a matter of doing that. It's just a matter of sitting here, bending the tab, sticking it in the hole, and wrapping it twice around. And I got about 300 of them to do, so this will take a while. It's the day before Thanksgiving. I'm over here working on lights again. I spent most of yesterday working on the barrels. We got the holes drilled into them, and I got the wires attached. Just got done a little bit ago taking a count on these. I have 250 of the barrels. Now, when I originally made the lights, I made up 100 green, 100 red, and 100 blue. That was back in 2012. It's been, what, 7 years? Over the course of 7 years, for one reason or another, we have lost 50 lights. So I want to keep myself at 100 lights. So I went down to our local Ace Hardware, and I know it's not the right season for it, but I was asking, they had tomato stakes, and these are the tomato stakes. I buy the 6-foot long tomato stakes. Now, to make my barrels, I'm going to make up 50 more barrels, which means I'm going to have to drill 50 more holes and attach 50 more of the wire leads to, or mounting brackets to them. But to do the barrels, simply what I do is I come down here on the end of it. The ends have a plastic plug in them to keep dirt from going inside the tube and to make them easier to drive. And I cut it off. It basically fits on there like that, and I cut it off. And I use a pipe cutter in order to do that small one. After that, I come back through, and at 3-inch increments, which I've already marked out on the pole, I put a mark. And then I just basically come back through with my pipe cutter, and, you know, cut off each fragment, and there's my new base. The 6-foot length pipe will get you 23 barrels. 23 of those. So it's just a matter of sitting here, cutting and whacking and whacking and cutting. And then I'll get them out in the shop, I'll drill the holes, and we'll get the rest of the wiring and stuff on. So I'm going to need 23 off of this one, 23 off of this one, and a couple off of this one, and I'll save that tube, that stake, in case I need to make up more down the line. Alright, we've got all the barrels, and I got 300 barrels in there. They've all been cleaned, and I've got their wire fittings on them. So those are done, set off to the side for now. Our next step in the process are these here. Now these here were the LEDs I soldered together back in 2012, the original set. And they still work. As I explained in an earlier segment, the leads on it are of a different thickness. They don't match up with these leads here. I need everything. I want everything that thickness. Plus the color coding's a little easier. On these, when I originally made them to tell positive from negative, I took a Sharpie and just blackened the negative lead, so I knew which was negative and which was positive for hooking it up. So I want to replace these leads with new leads I've already got prepped and cut and ready to go, which means I have to put these into my soldering stand and just lightly go over the contacts to loosen up the solder, and then I can remove the leads. At the same time, I've also got to check the leads as well, anything that has any rust on it, and there are a few in there that have rust on them. You know, this one here, for one, you know, has some rust on it. They're going to go in the trash, and I'll just make up new bulbs to put in at a later date. So I'm getting ready to do that now. I got to remove these old leads off of these. As to those there, here a couple of years back, I found I was getting low on one of the colors. I think it was red. I was getting low on. So I went and made up some new ones, and they do have the appropriate leads on them. But the leads are way, way too long. So I've got to go through here and just snip the leads down so they're that length instead of this length. Real easy. So my first project, I think instead of doing those first, I'm going to do these. These will go real quick. Just, you know, get all the leads cut to the right length. Then I can set these off to the side and concentrate on those, because those are going to be the most work. Well, we got all the lights resoldered. Didn't take long. In the grand scheme of things, it didn't take long. It took me about a day and a half to do just over 200 LEDs, soldering the leads in. Roughly, if I wanted to put an hour to it, probably about 8 hours worth of work altogether over 2 days to solder up all of those, which wasn't too bad. Now I'm ready on another step, and that has to do with the leads off the LED. The one on the left is your positive. The negative, where the resistor is, or the other one where the resistor is your negative. I need to protect those. I cannot leave them bare. If I do, when I put them into the tube, there's a chance that they could short out, burning out the LED a heck of a lot quicker. Or causing an arc, which could cause a fire, even though it is, you know, 12 volt running through here, DC. You know, there are too many problems that could happen if I leave them bare. Now, originally, I used electrical tape, and I went through and I wrapped each of the leads, which was a pain in the ass due to the fact that the leads are small and very close together. When I made up this set here, I tried liquid electrical tape, which does work fairly well. I found it messy, and it takes a while for the stuff to dry, and you can't stack it with other LEDs while it's drying, or they end up sticking together and you end up with a hell of a mess. After that, I went to using this stuff, and this is what's called heat shrink tubing. This is the 1/8" size tubing. You can get it at Ace Hardware, Home Depot, any place that sells electrical supplies. You can get it. And it usually comes in a little kit, you know, with various sizes in it. For me, since I do use a lot of this for different electrical projects and stuff, I prefer to go off of eBay, and I buy it by the spool, 100-foot length. So there's 100 feet in one long tube, and I just snip it down to the size I need. And I just spent about an hour and a half going through a 100-foot roll and snipping it down to this length. But it works real easy. You just simply slide it over the wire up to where the leads are here, cover it, and then I take my heat gun to it, and this will actually shrink down and wrap it real tight. And it'll protect the leads, and also offers some water protection too. Makes them more water resistant, so water can't get into the connection. So now, basically, I need to sit here and take a tube, slide it over the wire, both wires on all the LED lights over the connection, and just run it over my heat gun, and that will seal it. Okay, we got the heat shrinking done on all the LEDs I had out, all the old ones. My next step now is to test them. One, I need to separate them, blue, green, and red, so I can get a count on them, so I know how many of each color I need to make up. But two, with all the wiring and everything I had to do with doing the new leads, I want to make sure everything is working right on them. So, basically what I'm doing, and I can't do it one hand, I need both hands, but basically the wires come right down to the end of the housing. So all I have to do is touch each lead at the same time to the two screws. The screws are tied in to my power station over there, which is turned on. And when I touch the leads to the two screws, the LED lights up. If it doesn't light up, now I know there's something wrong in the connection in here, and I can either take it apart or throw it and do a new, just do up a new one. Now I'll probably just end up throwing it. Okay, now that I have 100 red, 100 green, and 100 blue, it's time to get them into their casings. Now, getting them into their casings is real easy. It's keeping them in their cases that's the hard part. Basically, I need to take the LED, slide it into the tube until the LED is just at the other opening, like that. Now, the problem is if I don't do anything else to them, I tilt it, either way they're going to want to slide out. So I need to secure them in there, and I want to water protect them too, because moisture can get inside that barrel. So once I get the LED to that point and they're inside the barrel, I went down and picked up clear silicone caulking. I'll insert the barrel of the caulking gun into the thing, and I'll just fill that tube with caulking. And then once the caulking's in there, I'll place it like I did with that one. I've gotten one done already into the foam. And I'll just fill the foam up with lights until the foam is done, and then they can dry overnight. I can take them out and they're done. Now, the other thing I have to do, and I've already done it with these here, and I haven't done it with this one yet, is the barrels look pretty much all the same. There's no way for me to tell which color spot is which. So what I've done, since I'm working with red, I've gone through these using a Sharpie, and I just put an R on it. When I do the blue, I'll put a B on it. When I do the green, I'll put a green G on it. That way, when I go to install them in the haunt next year, you know, I can just go through and pull out a bunch of G's. I don't know, those are all green, or a bunch of B's for blue, or, you know, what have you. It gives me a way of marking them, you know, so I can tell what's what. So as I'm assembling them, as I run out of barrels, I'll do up more with, you know, with their letter on them. Right now, they're all in the barrel there. Those are all unmarked. So now it's basically stuffing tubes. Okay, after a lot of gooey work, we've got 300 blue, or I should say 100 blue, 100 green, and 100 red there in the shadow. Done. I gotta wait till tomorrow before I can do the last step on them. Right now, they're all the caulking's drying in them. And my last step on them is to go through and I'm going to retest each and every spot to make sure each and every one is working before I pack them up and get them put away. So, since it's only going on about 3 o'clock, I have plenty of time to work on something else. We are going to go into stage 2 of the LED project, and that's these here. These are the very original first floods I made. Same time I made those spots up originally. And it's basically a hunk of PVC pipe, 2-inch I do believe, with a 2-inch cap on the back, and a 2-inch PVC cap that has 6 holes drilled into it and 6 LED lights sticking through it. The wire runs up through the tube, up to these connectors. And the connectors are basically just for the leads here. I originally designed these so when I was packing them away I could just unplug the leads. Don't know why. At the time it seemed like a good idea, but it's a pain in the ass. And I'm finding these connectors after a while, like this one here, the wire and stuff frays off of them. Plus, over the years, I've had a few LEDs fail on me. I've done good on the blue. I've lost one green. I've lost 4 or 5 of the red floods over the years due to failure. I've had water get into these connections and cause shorts and what have you. And then this one over here has a V on it. These were supposed to have been ultraviolet. Back when I originally did the floods, I did not know all that much about ultraviolets. And the bulbs I used to make these were more purple than ultraviolet. So I am going to do away with the ultraviolet LEDs in here. And what I'm going to do is, with what I've got here, is I'll just solder up some new red, green, blue lights, and I'll convert those over and then fill out my red, green, blue floods. So it's going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to have some alterations also on the lights themselves. The wire on here on these is starting to get rusted and everything, and with the way I fastened them on, I did it the same way I did the spots originally. In fact, you can see that raised portion there, that's the wire, and I just used electrical tape to hold it on. And it causes, when you go to try to aim this, for the lights to flip and flop all over the place. Part of that's the way I have the fastener attached to it. The other part's the weight of the light. These lights are not light. So I'm going to do the same type of fastening like I did on the spots, which will require a longer length of wire than what I used on the spots. But I also want to cut down on the weight of these, and I don't really need this barrel here. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is, once I get these disassembled, is I'm going to drill a hole here in the cap to attach the wires. I can wrap it the same way I did with the spots. And then I think I'm going to cut that barrel down too. And I'll take away a lot of the weight and give it a smaller profile too for when they're hung. So these are going to require a little bit more work than the spots did. The spots, the thing that made the spot end of the project bigger or more cumbersome was the sheer number of them I was doing. I had 300 of them that I did. So, you know, it takes a while. I mean, putting the lights together, you know, one light doesn't take all that long, maybe about 2-3 minutes. You know, go from cutting the barrel to cutting the leads to cutting the wire, you know, and what have you. Probably about 5 minutes per light, grand total. So, you know, when you're doing 300 of them, it gets time consuming. These here are time consuming because of their goddamn size and all the alterations I'm going to be doing to them. But this is going to be our next project, and as we get into it and I make design changes and stuff, I'll give you a further look on this one. It's another day, another dollar. We did fairly well yesterday. We got the spots over there done. I'm going to get in today and get those cleaned up and put away, tested and put away. And then we moved over to these. These were the old floods, and we got these all disassembled. And one thing, you know, when I first do a project, I tend to go a little overboard on some aspects of it. You know, doing a little bit too much. You know, less is better sometimes. And that was the problem I had with these. When I assembled these, everything was done with hot glue. And when I went to take them apart, it was a pain in the ass trying to get the hot glue to come apart. As a result, my lenses that I made originally, I had a bunch that basically just broke. You know, trying to get them taken apart. There was just way too much hot glue. So I'm going to have to get some more of these plug caps, which I'm going to be getting today. We also went through, after these were all taken apart, and I got to thinking, these are not light, these are heavy. The pipe and the cap and everything. So I figured, and plus they're big. You know, it's a good 4.5, almost 5 inches from the tip here to the end there. So if you notice, I got a little white line on there. We're going to take these out in the shop, and I'm going to trim off about 1.5 inches of that barrel, shorten the barrel up. So these will have a smaller profile. At the same time, I've also got to drill a small hole in the barrel right next to the cap to accept these. These are my wire hangers. And I got these measured out, cut to length and everything. And that little hole I'm going to drill in here is for attaching those. That's all work I got to do out in the shop, and I'll do that today before the outdoor display gets turned on. That way I can have access to my power equipment out there. So we've got our work headed out. We got our work laid out for us. Now, as far as the lenses go, the other problem I had too when I taken apart, and it goes back to the hot glue, I ended up destroying all the LEDs that were in here. So I'm going to have to make up a fresh set of LEDs to go into each of these, and that'll take some time too, because there's 6 LEDs in those versus the 1 in the spots, and they're wired up a little bit differently. So we're getting there. First order of business though is I gotta go down to Home Depot and I gotta buy more lenses. So we're gonna do that, do a little Christmas shopping today. Then when we get home, we'll get out in the shop and we'll get the barrels cut, the hole drilled in them, plus the new lenses. I gotta get the holes drilled for the caps as well. So we'll work on that, and I think when we get back here in the house, I'll convert back over to the spots over there, and we'll get those cleaned up and put away so they're out of the way, because right now they're a tripping hazard over there. And the next day finds us ready to paint. We got in yesterday and we got the barrels cut. We cut about 1.5 inches off of this part. And then I also got my hangers on, which I had to do a different design. On the spots, I drilled one small hole in, put a tab of the wire in, and just wrapped it around the barrel. I tried that with these, and because of the diameter of the barrel, the wire just wanted to unspring. You know, it came out coiled like a spring. So that method for hanging it didn't work. So what I ended up doing is I got my drill and drill bit out, and I drilled a second hole. And I went and looped, you can see a little bit of the wire sticking down there. Looped the wire through and just twisted it. Twisted it as tight as I could without breaking the wire. And that seemed to do the trick. So I got my hanger. Now I'm also looking at these two, and they're marked and they're scuffed and there's some white showing. I've got old markings on them, you know, from the way they were before I started the remodel on them. So what I think I'm going to do is I just went out and I got my airbrush, ran my air hose, got my paint. I'm going to go through here and give these all a new fresh shot of black paint to kind of freshen them up a bit. Then I can set these off to dry. That leaves these here. And on my original ones, I used some chrome paint. You know, just painted them. You know, these are my reflectors. The holes are where the LEDs go. Well, these new ones are in white. So I need to do the same thing. I need to paint these. And this is done by brush. And I got my brush and my can of paint over there. So we're going to start off today with getting the painting done so I can set these off to dry. Then we can move on to the next phase of this part of the project. Well, we got finished. We got the new lenses, the holes for their LED lights drilled, and got the new lenses painted with the silver. And I've also got the bodies painted. In fact, I just finished these about 15 minutes ago. I got those there, and then these down here. There's 56 altogether. So now I'm going to set these off to dry, and they should have more than enough time to dry, because the next stage is going to take me several days to do. The next stage is LEDs. When I originally took these apart, I had used so much dang hot glue on them, I effectively just shredded the lights that were in there. So I get to sit down and we are going to start soldering up LEDs. And rewiring the LEDs to fit into the lenses, which will fit into the bodies, which will finish the project. Ought to be fun. Well, since we got the painting done, like I said last time, we were going to work on LEDs, and I've been working on LEDs. We started out with the LEDs themselves, 3 of them in series, and we're connecting positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, and on the last one, on the negative feed, I've added a resistor. Now, these floodlights I'm putting together have 6 LEDs, so it would be 2 of these, what I call clips, all together. I've also done up the wire leads that attach to them, black for negative and red for positive, and you notice there's an extra wire on it. That is for joining 2 sets. What I ended up coming up with, was this here. There's 6 LEDs there. You got your leads to go to the power. They attach to this clip. And then that extra wire goes up to the second clip. When you apply power down here at this end, it lights up both LEDs. So I'm sitting here assembling all of these right now. These are the reds that I'm working on currently. What I'm going to end up doing here for the vlog is, once I get past this stage and they're all connected, I'm going to go ahead and get these mounted onto the lenses that I've made. And I'll show you a clip of that here in just a bit, I hope. Well, now I've got the 18 lenses with their lights, or 18 clips, I should say, mounted in their lenses. I need to go through and test them. Every time I do work on LEDs, I do a lot of testing. Make sure connections aren't broken stuff. You know, it's usually after each step. This one here, I basically just pushed 3 LEDs into their holes and then put a dab of hot glue on the back to hold them into place. That's what's holding them. And I tweak the wires a little bit as I do it, so I want to test it. Now, to test them, I'm using my power station. I have a wire lead coming off attached to 2 screws. One's marked plus for positive and minus for negative. And what I end up having to do is just touch the correct leads to the correct symbols. Black would go to the negative and the red would go to the positive. And let's see here if we can get this one to light up. If it lights up, then it's good to go in its housing. There we go, it lights up. All 6 LEDs are firing. Now I basically got to do that with each of the LEDs that I've done. I've got 19 of them sitting over here, so each one I'm going to have to go through and do the same thing. I'll test them. Then I can send them off to the side. They're basically ready for mounting into their housings. And then I can turn my attention over to one of the other colors, probably the green, and we'll do the same thing, get all the greens to this point, and then do all the blues. And then I can clean up my table and get my soldering stuff put away. I hate having stuff strewn out all over the place. Well, we're getting down toward the end of the project. I've got a pile of floods over there that are finished. They're red and green. I'm working on blue, which is the last set. And last clip, I showed you these, and how I tested them. Now I need to get them assembled into their bases. Basically, what I'm doing is just threading the leads, the red and the black wire, through the holes in the back of the fitting. And then to hold the light into place, I put a bead of hot glue around the rim, or I should say the inside lip of the fitting, and then just basically press these down inside, which is what I have done here. So they sit like that. So that's all hot glued in. And then on the back of them, the hole's a little oversized, and that was because of the way I had the old set wired up. And I decided, instead of just plugging those up and drilling new holes, to use those holes. Problem is if I leave them like that, moisture is going to get inside, so I need to seal it. Now I have two options, and I chose the one most handy, and I'm using hot glue. And basically what I'm doing is I'm covering that hole up fairly good with a good glob of hot glue, enough for it to drip inside and seal inside and outside and around the wire. That'll keep moisture from going in. I could use silicone caulking as well to do the same thing if I had wanted to. But basically that's your finished light right there. Once I get these, and I have 18 of them to do, 17 now that one's done, I have one more step to do. But I'll show you that one here in a bit. I want to get these assembled first. Well, 56 floods, and they're all undistinguishable from each other. I have no idea which is green, which is red, which is blue. So, last step, I'm going to take each flood, and we're going to test the lights, just like I did before I installed the lights. We'll touch them to the pads here, test them. Once I do that and they come on, I'll be able to tell what color they are. I've got some paint brushes over here and some silver paint, and I will draw a R, a G, or blue, or B, RGB on it, depending on what color it is. If it's red, we'll get an R, green will get a G, blue will get a B. And then I set them off to dry, and then I can put them away in their tub down there, and this project is totally done. I'm not going to show you how I pack them. I don't think you're really interested in that. But for the most part, the rehab on our old lights is finished. Now I just got to get all the vlog footage edited and uploaded. Then we can start on our next project. Next project is going to be that power station. I rebuilt that some time ago. But that power station is going to get rehabbed and changed. That will be our next project. For that, you'll have to tune in to the next vlog, which I am thinking probably won't be up until sometime in January. First part of January, hopefully. But, it's after Thanksgiving now. Almost Christmas. So I hope you guys ate a lot of turkey. And I hope you guys have gotten your Christmas shopping done. Because Santa's about ready to come here in about another week, 2 weeks, I do believe. So, happy holidays, guys. Merry Christmas. We'll see you in 2020. Stay spooky. Stay toxic.